Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshinim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vrudaduhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So welcome everyone to this 25th session of Bhagavad Gita. As always, I'm very grateful to Sridhar ji and the Balaji Temple for giving us this opportunity to study the Bhagavad Gita, and we are highly indebted to him to host this series of Bhagavad Gita lectures. So we are in this second chapter, and in this second chapter, which is one of the most important chapters, we are looking at it in detail on many of the aspects. And as I've said, the chapter 2 is like the contents. And so far we looked at the highest knowledge, and from there on, we are moving on to Karma Yoga. So as always, with the reflection time today, I have something very simple questions. I did not go too deep into it. I'm saving that for next time. But today, let us see. So, simple question from last week, because it's tied to the shlokas that we saw, shlokas 42 to 44. How would we define the Vedas? And I would love to hear all your thoughts, because I know you all have different levels of how we can look at Vedas. So any thoughts, any answers, or any discussion? How would you look at Vedas?
Them into three. We can group them into three.
No, Amma, what are the Vedas? Before we come to that, because that's going to be my next question. So, yeah.
Are they the cream of the Upanishad, like all the scriptures, or like it's called the end of the scriptures?
That is Vedanta.
Vedanta.
That is Vedanta. But what are the Vedas? Anybody?
Collection of scriptures. They are
Go ahead.
manuals.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
They are scriptures like Rig Veda,
Right, that's what she
Yajurveda.
said. But I just want to know if you look at Vedas. I mean, my next question will be what are this? But So yes, they are scriptures. That is true. That is one way of looking at it.
Rituals and philosophy.
It contains rituals and philosophies. Okay.
And it is Shruti.
It is a Shruti. Yes. Very good. Very good.
And it's been revealed to rishis.
It's been revealed to rishis. Yes. Very good. Very good. Yeah. I think pretty much that's what I wanted to. Essentially, the reason I bring this up is when we ask a Christian or when we ask a Muslim, what is their scriptures? They would immediately say it is the Bible, or they would say it is the Quran, correct? So many times the question also comes to us, so then what is really the Bible of the Hindus, So for us, it is the Vedas, but it's a little different than how Christianity or the Quran would be looked at. Here in the Vedas, it pretty much has it's a manual for our life. So the Vedas also have the 6 Upavedas, and then of course the one major portion is talks about how do we fulfill our desires, all that, right? But in short, it is the scriptural text for Hindus. Okay. Next is, how many Vedas are there? And I think this is where Ganga Ramamurthy wanted to say something, and also Amma wanted to say something, right? Please do. Yes, Amma?
4, mainly 4.
4 Vedas, correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they are the 4 Vedas. And can somebody name them too?
Rigveda, Yajurveda, Yatharvana Veda,
Samaveda.
Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very nice. Yeah. And we can go more detailed into it, but we will be covering a lot of the details of this as we move on. The next is, what are the 3 gunas we have touched upon so far?
Sattva, Rajas, Tamas.
Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Excellent. And what are the characteristics of these 3 gunas? In a very simple form, Or if you want to give more, that's also fine.
Purity, Sattva means purity.
Mm-hmm.
Rajas is like passionate about, you want to compete, you want to do something for your accomplishments or whatever.
Correct.
Tamas is the inertia, the laziness.
Right. Very good. Excellent. So can somebody say also what is the relevance, or why should we be worried about the 3 gunas?
Because to get the knowledge, you need the sattva, the higher,
Correct.
the purity of mind.
Correct. So it is only with sattva that you can, let me put that answer. You're right. So sattva is the purity, rajas is the activity, and tamas is inertia. And in order for us to get the purity of a mind, we have to be in sattva. Very good. Excellent. So that's so this is just a simple form of I didn't go more into detail about this. So okay. So today we are going to enter into the most important shloka of Bhagavad Gita, or the most popular shloka, I would say. There are very many important shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, but this one particular shloka, which we're going to do today, is considered to be one of the most popular, and it is also very important because, in line with what we just talked about, sattva, rajas, and tamas, most of us, 99% of us, I guess I would say, we operate from a lot of rajas and tamas also, in terms of how we act in this world. So for that reason, this karma yoga is a very important aspect we have to, is connected to that. So which is why we have Lord Krishna first giving Arjuna this Sankhya Yoga, which is all about the Tattva Jnana, or the nature of my true self. Once he did that, he recognized that he also has to give Arjuna the steps to reach that. So as Anita just said, you need the Sattva Guna in order for the highest knowledge to sink in. But in order to get to Sattva Guna, we need to do what we call as this preparatory stage called as Karma Yoga. And in Shloka, I think 39, we saw how we had Lord Krishna tell Arjuna about how this karma yoga, which is also called Buddhi Yoga, what it does is it helps us to prepare our mind to become single-pointed. And with this single-pointedness, it is easy to get the clarity of the vision. So this word yoga, which comes from the word yuj, which means to yoke you can say the body and the mind, or the mind of the intellect, in many different ways. When that connection is established, what happens is it is easier for us to focus our attention. So in order to draw this attention to the higher, first we need to give up our lower attachments, which comes mostly because of rajas and tamas. And then we use a sattvic guna to yoke the attention, our mind, to the highest with the intellect. And it's only through sattva guna that we can actually prepare our mind. And that is why self-knowledge needs that sattva guna. And the very fact that you all are coming here to listen to the lecture itself shows the amount of sattva guna you have in you in order to be able to recognize this knowledge. So that preparation of the mind is through sattva, and that is where the karma yoga comes into play, where we are increasing our sattva content. And that is the essence really of karma yoga. So to get to understand that, we saw in shlokas 42 to 44 about how there are people, basically the description of all of us, sometimes where we do not have that single-pointed resolve. And this was given in the form of explanation through Karma Kanda, where in Karma Kanda, for people who do not have a resolve, there are many different tips and strategies on how you can increase the resolve. So that was given. And we saw how the people, like all of us, our minds are scattered everywhere because we have so many priorities. And because of the priorities, our energy is directed in many different ways. And this is what the shakha, which means the branches, bahu meaning many. So we have this many-branched, many-faceted mind. I know 20 years ago, multitasking was considered as a huge skill. But today, more and more people are recognizing that it is not a good idea to be multifaceted or anything. It's much more important for us to be focused in whatever we are doing. And so this Bahu Shakha Anantascha was described. And from here, we went into this Shloka 45, which is an important shloka, because here we saw Lord Krishna telling Arjuna that try to be an Atmavan, try to be established in this Atmavan, in the higher self, which is above the three gunas. So Nistre Gunya, try to be above the three gunas. And because all our desires are associated with the gunas, so he is giving this prescription for Arjuna, try to be above those gunas. And when we are above these gunas, then it is easy for us to free ourselves from the pairs of opposites. in the sense that we'd be able to take life in a very equal-minded fashion where we are not swayed by ups and downs, happiness and sorrow. And so Nitya Sattvastaha, be in Sattva, which will help us with all this. And then which will also help us freeing ourselves from the anxiety of acquiring and free ourselves from the anxiety of maintenance. So Lord Krishna is not telling Arjuna, don't go and buy that car, or don't go and buy that property, or don't go and buy that house. All he's saying is that you do what you have to do, but don't get anxious. Don't get stressed out, because I'm there to take care of you. So that's the essence of the shloka, which is free yourself from that anxieties. You just do your job, Arjuna, of trying to purify yourself, and I will take care of your yoga and kshema. So this is the shloka here. And this, just a quick recap on this shloka, what we saw last time was Lord Krishna gives Arjuna the description of the person who is so fulfilled, who is so fulfilled himself that he doesn't have to look outside for any accomplishments. He doesn't have to look outside to fulfill his desires and get the happiness, because we tend to look outside and we fulfill our desires, and we think that only when I fulfill all my desires that I will be happy. So we do all these things outside. And whereas the person who is above the three gunas, that person has got so much of happiness within himself, or rather he has recognized that he is that happiness. So he doesn't have to really look outside. And this is a comparison that was given, where a person who is looking outside for happiness is like the person who goes out to get water in the small pots. So he gets this water in small pots to satisfy himself, whereas a person who is full of that happiness within is like a person who is brimming with love and brimming with happiness. And that's the comparison which is made here in terms of a flood of water compared to the pot of water. And the description for us was a normal person like all of us. We are looking for happiness in very small, finite things. We are looking for happiness in places where it is uncertain. And we are also looking for happiness which is subject to external competition. So if I know that I am happiness myself, I don't have any competition at all, because I am happiness. And I have the happiness, so it is for sure certain. And this happiness is infinite, not finite. So we saw all this with the example of the Mahatma. So now we are coming to this philosophy behind Karma Yoga, which is explained with this beautiful shloka of Karmanye Vadikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana. We'll be seeing that shloka beautifully, but I found this beautiful picture and I couldn't resist putting this to show how Lord Krishna is giving that courage and giving that highest form of, I would say, karma yoga to Arjuna to dynamize him. And one would think that, Lord Krishna is giving him a lot of energy pill or something like that to make him wake up or make him fight the war. But you can see that Lord Krishna is actually giving him some very deep philosophy. And through that, it's such a awakening even for us in really where are we going wrong with the way we face the world. Today, when we face the world and we face a lot of stress and anxiety frustration, and even many other things like loneliness and all that, this one shloka, I think, has things which we can really learn from, which can help us really overcome all those frustration, anxiety, and even things like overcoming fear. So I have a lot to share today. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to take. And if we don't complete the whole analysis of that today, we might take it to next week also. So let's chant the shloka. Karmanyevadhikaraste Karmanyevadhikaraste Ma phaleshu kadachana Ma phaleshu kadachana Ma karma phalahetur bhuhu Ma karma phalahetur bhuhu Ma te sangostva karmani Ma te sangostva karmani Karmanyevadhikaraste Ma phaleshu kadachana Ma karma phalahetur bhuhu Ma te sangostva karmani. So, for sure, it is one of those most famous shlokas, very oft quoted, and also sometimes not well understood. Because, as you can see in the meaning of the shloka, if you were to read just the English meaning, it says, thy right is to work only and not to be concerned with its fruits. Let not the fruits of action be your motive, and nor should be attached to inaction. So, pretty cryptic, and which is probably why we need to spend the time to really understand the shloka. So let us see quite slowly and little by little too. And sometimes it may sound a little repetitive, but it is for a good reason. Because in the world outside, today, we are used to a certain way of working. And more so, it is becoming, I would say, in quote unquote, a problem, because anything and everything we do, if it doesn't go exactly how I intended it to be, then I feel sad. Or if it went much more than what it was, then I feel extremely elated, saying that I was very lucky and everything. So this shloka really puts a sort of, kind of grounds us into really thinking on how to act. So let's look at the Sanskrit meaning here. Karmani eva adhikaraha te. Karmani, the very first quarter of the shloka. Karmani eva adhikaraha te. Karmani, which means in action, okay? Not inaction, but in action. That is, whenever I do a action. So in karmani, eva, alone. So in action alone, adhikaraha meaning that, like even in most of our languages, we have say, enak adhikaram irukku, or I have a right? I have the right, correct? So adhikaraha meaning your right, or you can say your eligibility, or maybe your qualification. You are qualified. So it says in action alone, you are qualified. Te indicating you. So you have a right in the action. Your eligibility or your right is in performing the action alone. I repeat, your right or whatever we have to do, our entire focus, our entire eligibility is only on the action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Again, I'll break it up slowly on this one. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma. Ma is again a very, is a usage in Sanskrit to indicate not. Okay? To say not. You know, ma meaning not. Phala. Phala means the result. Phala, of course, indicates fruit, correct? So here it is the fruit of action or the result of the action, or you can say the effect of the action. So not in the result of the karma, kadachana, kadachana, at any time. So it says your eligibility is in performing the action, not in the fruit of the action at any time. So here you can say, it says not to be concerned. So adhikara, your right of freedom or eligibility, your responsibility is only in performing your action and never over the results of the action, because we have no freedom over the results of the action, and we have no control over it also. So how the action comes to us, we don't know. So for example, even today, I mean, not to bring any political stuff here, but for example, the coronavirus, how did it come? Where did it come from is a big debate, which is the news of today. Now, that is kind of almost a result of something which happened some time ago. That part of it, we really have no control over it. So the right and eligibility is the performance of only the action, never in the fruit of the action. That is the first line, karmani eva adhikarahate ma phaleshu kadachana. Now let's go to the third quarter or the second line. Ma karma phala hetu bhuhu. Ma karma phala hetur bhuhu. Again, ma indicating not, right? Or not here. Ma bhuhu. That is, don't have that ma karma. So karma phalo, now let's look at karma phalo hetu. So we said ma bhuhu, that you don't have. Karma phala hetu. What does that mean? It means that person. So don't become that person who has the hetu. Hetu, the word hetu means intention or reason. So for the person who has the intention for the results of the action. So it's kind of a very peculiar Sanskrit compound, which is ma karma phala hetuhu, means ma karma eva hetuhu asya. This, again, my thing is frozen here. Okay, let me see if I can, I will try to, okay, or I'll continue and then we'll see how it goes. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, the karma phala hetuhu is almost an adjective. So, why does he perform an action? An intention for what you might call as a desired result. So, in other words, he's saying, let not the fruit of your action be your only motivating factor to perform that action. So, karma phala hetu is the adjective. Asya is that person. Okay, I should be able to. Okay, there you go. For some reason, always around this time, the Zoom seemed to act up. I don't know. So karma phala hetu is the adjective. So he says, do not become a person who's performing the karma only because there is something in it for him, just because there is a particular result. So don't perform the karma with the intention of a particular result. So in other words, you can look at this as saying that look at any karma with totally being free of the desire for that fruit of action. Now, does that mean that I should not have any kind of a goal and then perform the action? No, that is not again what Krishna is saying. Lord Krishna is just saying that you first have a goal and work hard towards a goal, but let me be the decision maker to see what your result should be. So ma karma phala hetu buhu, may you never become motivated. Let not that be the way in which you are working. Don't make this mistake of derive your inspiration from the result. Let not the result be a motivating factor for it. So then how should I work? Would immediately be the question, right? So he says, Mate sangaha astu akarmani. Mate sangaha astu akarmani. That is, he's saying, don't get attached. So work in such a way that you don't, first of all, have the motivation as the result of this being the motivating factor. So, and also work, but don't stop working. Okay? Don't stop working. So don't be attached to inaction. Inaction meaning don't stop working. And so just perform your action because that is what is your duty. So perform your action as a duty. So that is the whole meaning of this shloka itself. Now, it really seems like, what does that mean? What should be my motivation? And if there is no motivation, should I not work? All these questions comes into a mind when you analyze the shloka very slowly and carefully. So let's look at it again as phrase by phrase. Ma karma phala hetuhu. Why should I really perform this action if the result is not important for me? So the point that Krishna is trying to make here is that the reason why you want to do this is that is the only way you can actually develop your purity of your mind. Because as we have talked about even before, if I were to do something for the sake of a result, then what happens is I get into constantly an aspect of building up a certain desire. And the idea when we said in the previous shloka about how nistre gunyo bhava, which is trying to see how you can purify the mind slowly and improve your sattva, which means becoming nishkama. Nishkama indicating that trying to lessen the amount of desires. So when I'm craving for this fruit of action, then what happens is I'm constantly increasing the level of desire for that fruit of action. And I need to lower that amount of desire in me. So for that reason, I need to see how I can work in such a way that I don't have a desire for the fruit of action and no attachment towards that. Okay, let me see. Yeah. So then Bhagavan says, Mate sangostu karmani. also, along with the fact that not having this motivation for the desire for the result, let there be also no attachment to inaction. So let there be no sangaha mate sangaha astu karmani, akarmani, which means that you want to make sure that there should be no attachment to inaction, because we find that if we do that, we can actually remove a lot of laziness in me. So we saw this already about why should I perform without desire? The reason, when we say again, we are performing for the sake of, just for the sake of duty, and not for the result of the action. By doing this, it really helps us to improve our purity, and it makes us qualify for really the highest knowledge, which is what was talked about in the Sankhya Yoga portion, about me wanting to recognize truly what my true nature is. Today, if you remember the diagram I had, where I showed how we identify ourselves so much with our body, with our mind, and sometimes our intellect also. By identifying with all these external equipments, we become more and more desirous of wanting to satisfy these external equipments. But our true nature being that Atman, I need to purify mind to get there. To purify the mind, I have to lessen the amount of desires. And lessening amount of desires is the way by which, where I am now disregarding or working in such a way that I'm not attached to the fruit of action. Because when I'm not attached to the fruit of action, that lessens the amount of desires. When I lessen the amount of desires in my mind, to that extent, my mind becomes purified. And when my mind is purified, now I qualify for the highest knowledge. So that is the mechanism or the philosophy behind Karma Yoga. So you see, this shloka is pretty deep in that sense. Some other points. Mati Sangostu Akarmani, which is when I act in the world, not, when we said that when you act in the world, not to desire for the fruit of action, and the question comes is, then should I work at all? Why don't I not work? What is my motivation? Here, this part of it, which says, Mate Sangostu Karmani, Akarmani, the whole idea is, if I don't work, then I will become lazy. I am succumbing to my tamasic guna. So how do I overcome that? I overcome that by making sure that I work. So in this sense, my laziness is removed. Now, this aspect of it, we will be actually discussing more in the third chapter, where we will see about what is inaction, because in many times, this word inaction can be interpreted as laziness. And laziness is probably one of the worst all the talents or abilities that we might have. So this alasyam, as it is called, is something that needs to be nipped in the bud. And so this is an important point to recognize. Somebody might say, well, I don't have a problem with work. I mean, I really don't have a problem. I actually am very hyperactive I have so much of desires. I really want to work quite a lot. And I am so ambitious. I have no problem. So that is not a problem for me. So I'm not really lazy. Now, that also is not something that is highly desired because, like we said, a person who is hyperactive is a person who is constantly looking for what is in it for me in each and every action that the person is doing, right? So we don't need that also. So the second point about this same thing about mate sangostu karmani, akarmani. Now, this act, which is a desire prompted activity, is eliminated. Basically, it is letting us, you can see how it is inbuilt in this aspect itself by doing my action without really looking for what is in it for me. In that sense, we find that any action that I do is now done for the sake of the action. So it is an action which is a desirelessness action. That doesn't mean that it is not an action which leads to a goal. The goal is the one which is now, this helps in the in Shloka 39 when we talk about karma bandham prahasyasi. It basically helps us to get rid of the bandhas or the attachments. Now, attachments themselves are caused because of the desires. So it is all desire prompted attachments. So from this, we can see that all the karmic karmas are removed. The karma that we do ends up becoming a kartavya karma. Kartavya karma indicating that it is a karma which I do it automatically as if it is my own duty. So these actions then becomes karmani eva adhikaraha. You see how now the action itself is built here in such a way that I become a person who is, the actions are now directed to becoming a duty.